Is there only one more?
It still doesn't matter to you. I'm finding out the hard way, but what can I do? Anyway you roll it come undone. Never really knowing when it's half the fun. It's still got a way to get over when you're out of this, but I admit I'm losing a little bit. That's why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you.
Swimming, ski, hiking, cycling.
This is my time. This is my moment to shine like the sun. Shine like the sun. Shine like the sun. Taking it back now. I'll be strong. I'll be strong. And shine like the sun. Whoa.
Hey, come on in, join the game with me. Just loosen up a bit, be what you wanna be. Body we go with it. Whatever will take your mind out of it. Hey, 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 put your hands in the air and laugh out loud. Don't let the moment fade away. Hey, give me love, we on the way there to set you free. Hey, ooh, can feel the we're gonna set you free. Jump into the crowd, and sing around, feel it tonight. We're gonna set you free.
Is there only one month?
It still doesn't matter to you. I'm finding out the hard way, but what can I do? Anyway, you roll it, it come undone. Never really knowing when is half the fun. It's still got a way to get over when you're out of this, but I admit I'm losing it a little bit. That's why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you.
Swimming, skiing, hiking, cycling.
This is my time. This is my moment to shine like the sun, shine like the sun, shine like the sun. Taking it back now, I'll be strong and shine like the sun. Whoa.
Hey, come on in. Join the game with me. Just loosen up a bit. Be what you wanna be. Body we go with it. Whatever will take you my out of it.
Is there only one month?
It still doesn't matter to you. I'm finding out the hard way, but what can I do? Anyway, you roll it, it come undone. Never really knowing when is half the fun. It's still got a way to get over and get out of this, but I admit I'm losing it a little bit. That's why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you.
Swimming, ski, hiking, cycling.
This is my time. This is my moment to shine like the sun. Shine like the sun. Shine like the sun. Taking it back now. I'll be strong. Shine like the sun. Whoa.
Hey, come on in. Join the game with me. Just loosen up a bit. Be what you wanna be. Body we go with it. Whatever will take you my out of it. Hey, hey, put your hands in the air and laugh out loud. Don't let the moment fade away. Hey, give me love. We on the way there to set you free. Hey, ooh, can feel it, we're gonna set you free. Jump into the crowd and sing around. Feel it tonight. We're gonna set you free.
Is there only one mode?
It still doesn't matter to you. I'm finding out the hard way, but what can I do? Anyway you roll it, it come undone. Never really knowing when it's half the fun. It's still got a way to get over when you're out of this, but I admit I'm losing it a little bit. That's why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you. Why I'm coming to you.
Swimming, skiing, hiking, cycling.
And now we're beginning. We are so excited to have this webinar with Jessica Cunsolo, who's joining us today. She wrote She's With Me, the mega hit on Wattpad, which was read 142 million times. She's got a book deal. She has a TV show deal, and she's going to walk us through her experience and all the amazing success she's had and give you watching this her tips and tricks and everything that she's learned along the way. Firstly, we also want to thank our sponsor for this, Honor. They brought this webinar to us, and Honor is the leading technology company for youth. The pandemic has prompted a creative revolution. The smartphone has become so much more than a device just for communication. It is now a vehicle for self-expression and creativity, providing all the tools that you need at your fingertips for on-the-go creativity or escaping into an amazing story. So with that in mind, we are delighted to be partnering with Honor to launch the Emerging Writers Program to empower budding writers through the power of technology. And over the last month, we've sourced 10 of the hottest writers from across the globe, and we've equipped them with the brand new Honor 10X Lite, tasking them with writing short stories about their hopes and dreams for life after lockdown. We're actually going to highlight a few things about the phone before we get started. And Jessica, you're very lucky because you've actually got the device and been getting to grips with the technology. So what was your impression?
Yeah, so they sent me the 10X Lite phone. This is my first Android phone, so I really got some time to play around with it. And I really like it. It's really cool. And one of my favorite features is the ebook mode. So if you click on ebook mode, everything is just in this ebook mode. So it's really light on your eyes. So it's having a lot of fun playing around with that as well. And also there's really cool cameras here. So this portrait mode is just amazing, especially when I like to film myself talking. It was just really cool to play around with.
That's fantastic. And I agree with you on the ebook mode. For us, if you're watching this, you're probably a fan of reading, and it's really much better experience on your eyes, right? Because less light and just a better kind of reading experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's better to read without all that blue light when your eyes, especially if you're like me and you're reading until 3 a.m. in the morning. You really don't want to be assaulted with that. And I read that this phone can hold up to 12,000 ebooks. So I'm really excited to see all the stuff I can read on this phone.
And hey, in 2021, let's see how many of those ebooks that we can get through. Don't know if we can quite do 12,000, but if we can do a few of those, that would be fantastic.
Exactly.
Okay, Jessica, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story. So how did it begin for you? How did you start writing? And tell us about your journey of kind of first starting to write on Wattpad.
Yeah, so I first found Wattpad when I was 17. I was basically just in class and I was trying to avoid paying attention in class when one of my classmates had told me about Wattpad. It was an app. So I downloaded the app and I kind of just would hide my phone in my desk and read on Wattpad in class instead of paying attention. And from there, it just took off. I decided to start writing on the app as well. And I wrote my first book, She's With Me. And that was the first book that really blew up and helped me be where I am today. It was the first book that got published. It was the first book that like really just made me be aware that I wanted to become an author. And I got to go on this journey.
Amazing. What has been what has been your favorite part about writing? What has been like the thing that's kind of kept you coming back?
Oh my goodness, I love a lot about writing. Specifically, I really love being able to just write down and get all of my internal thoughts on paper, because a lot of the time I will just daydream, and now I get to actually use those daydreams in like a cool story and get to see them come to life on the page. And I also really like interacting with the readers, because readers will always message me no matter where I am on what social platform and tell me, like, engage with me with the book and with the characters that I had daydreamed about. So it's really cool just to see my characters come to life and see how people are interacting with my story.
This is definitely something that is really interesting and quite unique to Wattpad as well, because you're interacting with people through this kind of social platform, through an app. How does that change the writing experience, and what has that interaction been like for you with the readers?
I mean, the interaction with readers, I can 100% say is what made me continue writing. Because when I started posting, I just posted one chapter and I left it there. I really didn't think I was going to be a writer. I wasn't going into it thinking that I was writing like for a purpose to get published. I was just writing for fun. And eventually the readers started commenting on my story. They were voting on it. They were connecting with me. They were talking about my characters. And it made me realize, like, I should keep going. People are interested in this. So because of them, I ended up writing like 3 whole books when I didn't think I had one in me, never mind 3 whole books. And it's really them that pushed me to keep writing. So if it wasn't for that interaction with the readers, I never would have continued past those first couple of chapters that I posted. So I'm really grateful for them, because now I'm here and I have 3 books.
That's so cool. As your popularity has grown, do you feel like you have a quote unquote a brand? Like, do you feel like you are the Ava Violet Jessica Cunsolo brand, or do you feel like all your books have a typical look and feel that people go for? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, I feel like my brand is just me and like what I enjoy reading. So I like to have a little bit of humor in my books. Obviously, they're all young adult reads, so it's a lot of the high school emotions and all of that drama that comes along with high school and all the little romance. And that's just, I like to have all those hints in my books. And I feel like that's just my brand, that humor, romance, drama, a little bit of like a bad boy vibe, but like not really. And that's just my favorite to read. So that's just my favorite to write as well. So I feel like that is kind of my brand.
That's awesome. And so when you were writing your first book, like, firstly, how long did it take? And now it's in when it was done, were there any things you kind of wish you could have gone back and changed?
Oh my goodness. It took me a long time, and I'm very guilty of taking forever to update because on Wattpad, you're updating chapter by chapter. You're not posting the whole book. So I would write certain parts and then I wouldn't touch it for like a month. And then I'd come back and I'd be like, oh, people are reading it. I guess I should continue. So I would continue posting it. And I think it took me, I want to say about 2 years to finish my first book. Don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure. I just know it didn't take me like a quick amount of time. It took me a while. So that took me a while to write the first book. The other two kind of came quickly because I think I was just getting in that groove of it. So yeah, it definitely took me quite a bit.
I want to answer one of our audience questions now. And in fact, we have a video clip from them. So I'm going to hopefully be able to play this video clip.
Hey Jessica, it's great opportunity to ask your questions. Thank you for sharing us your recommendation and advice. So my question is, what kind of trouble do you have with the text? Maybe you had something unpleasant moments, how you deal with it. So it would be nice if you answer my questions. Thanks.
Hopefully that was clear. What she said is, what do you struggle with most when you're writing, and how do you handle these difficult situations?
I think my biggest struggle, and I think it's very common for a lot of writers, is that I struggle with writer's block a lot, which is basically when you're writing and you just don't know what else to write. You don't know where to go from where you are. You're kind of just stuck there. So especially because I don't really plan it out. I feel like if I had a plan, it would help me more, but I struggle with writer's block a lot. And everyone deals with it differently. I'm a big believer in just kind of letting it sit and coming back when you're feeling more inspired. But the truth is sometimes you're not always feeling inspired. It could be months where you're still in that writer's block. So if that happens, then I would just sit down and just force myself to write something, get it out. It doesn't have to be good. You can go back in after when you are feeling more inspired to make it better. But once you kind of get over that hump, usually you end up continue going. And I also like to switch from if you are typing to handwriting, or if you're handwriting to typing. A lot of the times I feel like when I'm handwriting, it just comes a lot easier for me and I can just continue going off like that. And hopefully that'll kind of get the creative juices flowing for me to continue pushing on through writer's block. So that would be my advice for that.
I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. And that's something that often our Wattpad users ask quite often, is how to bust through. So I hope everyone paid great attention to that, because I think Jessica's given you some brilliant tools. Sit down and write, change the medium. Hey, you can even change the story if need be. Anything just to get yourself moving and writing and like that, those creative juices flowing. I think that's really good. We'll bounce this directly into another question from one of our emerging writers with the 10X Honor Emerging Writers program here on Wattpad. And this is from Alamarie. And their question is, how can I develop my small ideas into big stories? So developing a short story into a big story idea, or maybe if you've just only written short stories or done writing contests, which is a great way of starting writing on Wattpad. How do you take the kernel when you have a smaller idea? How can you take that and make it big?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that a lot of stories start with that little kernel. A lot of people like myself, we don't plan. So we just start with that little kernel and we kind of just expand it into a whole story. And I think the important thing about doing that is just not to get too much in your head and try to look at the bigger picture, if that makes sense. It's kind of contradictory, but try to see what you want to say with that story and just blow it up. Try to go on as big as you can and then have that character weave through all those situations. And try not to stress too much about it as you're doing your first draft. Editing is there for a reason. So even if you're struggling with the little details, just write something. And then when you go back and edit it, you could make it all come together to get that big picture aha moment that I feel like starts with that little kernel that you can expand. So that's what I would say for that, if that makes sense.
I guess that makes absolutely perfect sense. And again, really, really brilliant advice. I think a great follow-on question to that would be is, okay, you've got your story, you're growing it, you're also growing an audience on Wattpad while this is happening, let's not forget. How do you keep them coming back chapter after chapter? Is there any methods that you use to try and create suspense so that people return or they can't put it down? How do you create that unput-downable, if that is a word, ability in your stories?
Yeah, and I love this question because I'm very well known for ending chapters on cliffhangers. I ended a whole book on a cliffhanger. I just love cliffhangers so much. And I love reading cliffhangers as well. So I'm not doing that on purpose just to create unnecessary suspense. That's just something that I like. And I think it's important for serialized stories like on Wattpad, where you are updating chapter and chapter at a time, where you want people to come back. You don't want to like have a nice clean cut chapter like you would in a normal book. You want something to kind of keep going for the next one. You want people to come back to see what would happen. And I think a big part of that is to have that overall arching story and then have your little subplots in between. So while one thing may have been solved, there's still all those other little subplots that you want to keep coming back to see how it's solved. So I would say have your little subplots out, and if you want to do a cliffhanger, do a cliffhanger. I love cliffhangers. That's my tactic. That's what I used. But yeah, that's what I would say.
And it also plays into the social nature of Wattpad, right? When we're reading through technology, we have this unique experience because it is a place where it's kind of like reading a normal book. You're being entertained. But then on the other side, it's also this social place. So within your book, it becomes a place for people to meet and hang out as they discuss your story. And I think maybe having a cliffhanger gives people something to talk about in the chapter.
Yeah, 100%. And I love reading through the comments on my book because as I'll end like on a big cliffhanger, people will be talking to each other, like arguing about theories of what's to come or telling me what they think will happen. And a lot of people end up just discussing your book and they remember your book that way because they had met their friends through your book talking about theories, talking about what they think will happen, what they want to happen. So I think that's really cool, that comment section, because if you do look at the ends of each of my chapters, the majority of the comments from the chapter are at the end with people talking to each other about what had happened in the chapter. So that's really cool to see as well. I love reading through those comments and reading everyone's theories.
And this is something that obviously we're during COVID-19, 2020, at Wattpad HQ, when we're looking at the stats of Wattpad, this is something that we've seen grow exponentially. So we've seen this in two major ways. One, we've seen 150% increase in writers writing on Wattpad, which is fantastic. So people are using this time, they're using the lockdowns, and they're using that to finish their novels, which you and I know how important it is to get books finished and to keep writing. There's not a better way of getting better than just keep going. And that's always like an overarching message that I think you'll hear all writers say. And the second thing that we've seen is on the social side. We've seen a big increase in commenting as well, and people connecting and using stories to connect during the lockdown, which is great to see. What are your thoughts around people using technology to connect in this time on platforms like Wattpad through their love of stories?
Yeah, and I feel like this is good for not only during lockdown, but for all the time, because writing is such an isolating event. You're not really like getting together with friends to sit down and write. You're just at your desk at home. Well, at least I am. So COVID or not, I'm always kind of isolated while I'm writing. And through technology, I'm able to connect with other people who are also writing. So there will be times where I'm up until 3 a.m. trying to get my chapter done for the next update or my edits done for my company. But I have other writers also on my phone who are texting me, who were on Discord, we're talking to each other at the same time. So it really makes you feel like you're not alone. There are other writers out there helping you along with your story. Even though I'm physically in my office alone, I'm connected through my phone, through my computer, through the internet with other people who are also reading and enjoying my stories and who are also writing their own stories to share with other people.
And I'd say as well, let's not forget that our our phones can be pretty useful actually, for the creative process. Like never in a time in history have people been able to write and share novels directly from your phone. Not just that, if you're not in the writing process, you're in the brainstorming. Like me, you were probably struck with story ideas in the craziest of places. And it's very that when you get that idea or that soul for that writer's block or the tension that you're going to put in a scene, whip out your phone, open
My
open
notes.
open the
Notepad.
notes exactly, on your new 10x Lite, hopefully, and write down those notes. It's a really great way for any writer to kind of keep that momentum and keep things going. Um, I'm wondering about your own personal reading habits. Do you find yourself writing or reading on smartphones more? Is this something that you do?
Yeah, on my smartphone, yes. I am, as I said before, I'm a really big like frenzy about writing when you're feeling inspired, and inspiration will hit you in the craziest times, right? So sometimes I'll just be like driving and I'll think of something. So as soon as I park, like I'll sit in my driveway just typing away of like my notes, trying to remember everything that I thought of. Or if I'm in the shower, I'll jump out and try to write it really quickly. So I really do use my phone for writing, but for reading as well, just because reading reading until like 3 a.m. with all your lights on, my dad will sometimes walk in and yell at me for like wasting electricity. He's like totally joking, but with my phone, at least I have like that little light. I'm not really wasting electricity, and it is better on your eyes without that blue light just glaring at you. So I really do like, I always love having an actual book in my hands, but having the phone there is easy, especially if you're just like waiting in line somewhere and like you're bored. It's a lot easier just to whip out your phone and read instead of pulling out like your whole book and like reading just while you're in line at the grocery store or whatever, which I always do. I always just pull out my phone to read. So I love having my smartphone there with all my books.
So going from ebook to physical book, you have now crossed the line, going from writing on Wattpad, building up an audience, to seeing your novels be published. And in fact, just this week, your second book came out, which is so exciting. Can you talk the people listening through the journey there and your publishing process, what it's been like?
Yeah, so as I said before, I never thought I would get published. So when I had the ability to get published, I was just like over the moon. And then we had to start that actual process, which I knew nothing about. So the first step is to get your notes back from your editor. And this is the developmental notes. So this is just someone who sits down, reads your books, and points out basically all the plot holes. And because I didn't plan, my book had a lot of plot holes. So I got like this like 6-page letter of him just basically pointing out like everything that was like wrong with my book. And I got this back, I was fairly young. I think I was like 20 or 21. And I like took it so personally, even though I knew it wasn't personal at all. And like the book is a lot better with all of his suggestions, 1000%. So now when I get his notes back, I'm like, yes, like tell me everything that's wrong with my book, because I just want to make it better. But back then when I got that letter, I was like, oh my goodness, like why am I being published? My book is terrible. But I'm sure everyone goes through that when they get that big list of stuff that's wrong with their book. And then after that, I went through and I implemented all of his suggestions. I realized what he pointed out was wrong. And I went through and I fixed it. And then we go back and forth with a line editor. And she's the person who basically marks up everything with like a red pen and tells you everything that's wrong with your writing. So the first guy tells you what's wrong with his story. The second person tells you what's wrong with your writing. And it's like a whole journey. But again, it comes out really well in the end. And I'm really, really grateful for my editors, because now when I read my book, you see the actual full potential of the story instead of struggling over the little things that I didn't notice while I was writing it, if that makes sense. So that was like a really fun journey for me. And then you have the copy editor who makes sure like the commas are in the right places and you're using like ellipses right and all the stuff that I don't know, right? So, and then once it finally goes out, it's really cool to see that finished product on the shelf with all that hard work in it and all those hands that had a hand in helping your story just reach its full potential.
And what was it like? Obviously, when your first book came out pre-pandemic, you got to have like a full book event at a proper bookstore. What was that like?
That was amazing. I never thought that I would get to have an actual book signing. And when I did go to the book signing, I was really worried that no one would show up. And when I actually got there, there were like about 100 people there. It was insane. I was so blown away by how many people had come out to meet me and to talk to me. And I got to sit down and do a Q&A like we're doing right now, just about my book and about the process about it. And everyone there was so nice. And I remember while I was signing the books, afterwards everyone got to come up, there was one girl who came up to me and she handed me an envelope. And in the envelope was a letter where she had addressed me and she wrote to me about how much my book had meant to her. And she left me a playlist for my book. And I was like so blown away, like so close to tears. I didn't know that I had that kind of impact on people. So getting to actually meet someone and talk to someone and see how much that my book had meant to them, it was absolutely insane. That was probably my favorite experience ever, was my book signing, getting to meet all my readers. It was so fun.
That's awesome. And obviously the sequel has just been released. Tell us about this.
Yes, it came out a couple of days ago. And my sequel, when I had first written it, I think it was about 50,000 words. And after I went through and I fixed it, I added about 30,000 words to it. So there's a lot more content in the actual book than there was on Wattpad. Because again, when I got that 6-page note from my editor, there was all these things that I didn't see. So I had to make sure that I went in, make sure that it was an actual full book that reaches full potential. So when that was released a couple days ago, it was just insane, the amount of support that I got. And all the people who read the first book are now getting to read the second book. And I was really looking forward to what they would say, because in the first book, it was more or less the same story, but I had taken away 30,000 words. But in this case, I'm adding 30,000 words. So there's a lot more scenes where people get to read stuff that they haven't read before. So I was really nervous about what they would say about how I changed the book, and I really hope they like it. And so far, all the comments have been really positive and really good. So I'm happy to hear that people are enjoying it as much as they enjoyed it the first time around.
That's amazing. For those listening, She's With Me, Stay With Me. These are Jessica's big books. You can check them out on Wattpad and purchase them worldwide. You can go to wattpad.com and they're on the homepage right now, which is really exciting to see that.
It is really exciting to open Wattpad and see all my hard work right there.
We've got a question now from one of the emerging writers here, from La Dame Blanche. And she says, "Hi, Jessica. What advice do you have for writers who want to get their stories sold for film and television?" And I'm wondering if you can answer this, but also weave in your own story of having your book sold for TV. We know that She's With Me is being developed into a TV show by Sony Pictures Television. How did this happen? What was it like? I'd love to hear this.
Yeah, so I'm one of those lucky individuals. I didn't really, as I said, I didn't really write with the intent of getting a movie or a TV deal. I was just writing to write. And once my book was published, Wattpad Studios was actually the one who went out to Sony and got that deal. And that was obviously very exciting for me because they had told me about a year prior that they were trying to make it into a TV show, but it wasn't 100% yet. So I couldn't really tell anyone. So I was sitting on this, is it going to be, is it not going to be? Because it's not 100% for like about a year. That I just really wanted to scream and be so excited that it might be a television show, but I couldn't say anything until it was finalized. And one day I was at a hockey game with my boyfriend and our friends, and I had gotten a call from my talent manager, Ayana, and she was the one who said, "It's a go, you can announce it to people, it's a deal, you can just go ahead and tell everyone." So I was just so frantic, and I just wanted to tell everyone about the news, and the news was so exciting. Everyone was like really excited. And I get a lot of people asking me now, like, what's going on with it? Because I announced it about a year ago now and what the updates are. And I really don't know because Hollywood moves so slow. By the time like it actually comes out, it might be like 4 or 5 years from now. So everyone's always asking me for updates. And I don't really have anything to tell them about the news because like they're still trying to find writers, trying to do the process, the Hollywood process. I don't really know much about the Hollywood process, but they're going through that now. So when I have more, I'll definitely be able to share with more news. But like I said, I don't really know.
And that, I think, would you be able to say, so for people that are kind of getting going on Wattpad, right? They're going to be watching this, watching you being like, wow, this is amazing. What are the things that they can do, the nuts and bolts of the things that you can do to try and find success on Wattpad? Because this has happened after you've spent years writing and sharing your books on Wattpad, and people will forget that you've been on Wattpad for years, been doing this for years and years and years, and then these kind of successes all seem to kind of happen quite quickly at the end. But roll your mind back to the early times. If you were speaking to someone that's just uploading their first story onto Wattpad, what would you tell them to do? What would be your top tips?
Well, the first thing that I would say 100% is to write the story that you want to write. Don't write the story you think will end up being a TV show, a movie, or a published book. Write the story that you want to write because things are always changing. So when I started writing, I just wanted to write this cool story about Amelia and how she goes to a new school and meets like this like bad boy. And that's just a story that I wanted to write at the time. So obviously I put all of my love and effort into telling her story. And I think that really made a world of difference because people finding the story can really see how much I just love Amelia and Aiden and their story. And I still love Amelia and Aiden and their story. So that would be my first tip, just to write what you want to write. Because if you want to write it, then other people want to read it. And my other tip would be, don't be too hard on yourself. It's not going to blow up overnight. I didn't blow up overnight and a lot of other people didn't blow up overnight. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're not getting like tens of millions of reads right as you start uploading it. And I would also say to make sure that you're interacting with your readers. As I said before, I just love interacting with my readers and they're the ones who really made me continue writing. So they're there on Wattpad with you. Just don't be afraid to interact with them and to see what they think of the story. And yeah, that's what I would say.
I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. And from a Wattpad HQ standpoint as well, we know that some of the things that we've seen, if you have a really great cover that catches people's attention, that's really, really important. Now we have content hashtags, which is something that we're seeing, that something's been introduced in Wattpad for the last few years. Make sure that you use as many relevant ones, the correct ones for your story as well, because that's going to really supercharge your the way that you're discovered on Wattpad, your discoverability. And so all of those are important. And then I love what Jessica said about treat your readers like friends. They might become your friends someday. Cherish them, and they'll continue to grow. I think these are all like super, super great tips for anyone starting out. And it sounds simple. And in some ways it is simple, but where it gets really tough is doing this consistently for years on end. Are there any times when you felt like, I think I'm done? Were there any times when you kind of flirted with stopping?
Yeah, so when I was writing, I had just started my third book and I really hit a big wall of writer's block. I didn't know what I wanted to happen in the third book. I didn't know where I wanted to take it. I didn't know how to start it. So I had written about 10 chapters and I posted those 10 chapters and I really hated them. I hated those 10 chapters so much. And I kind of was just like, maybe I'll just like finish up book 2 and like just end it at that. But once I started thinking about it, there was just so much more of Amelia and Aiden's story that had to be told. So I ended up just deleting those 10 chapters. I think it was like 20,000 words, which was a lot of effort on my part and was really scary to just scrap that and start over. But it's what needed to happen because those 10 chapters were really holding me back. And then I just rewrote them like completely new. It had nothing to do with what I had originally written. And it just started flowing from there. So definitely don't be scared to just scrap it and start over if you're not feeling it. Don't force yourself to continue on with the story that like you absolutely hate, because I just hated those first 10 chapters of the third book, and now I obviously love it because I rewrote it the way that I thought it should be told afterwards.
And what's interesting there too is the last part, right? Is that you didn't delete them and walk off into the sunset. You continued working and finished the story, which builds a lot of reader trust. I think it means that people feel like they can recommend you to their friends because they know that you're an author that's going to continue going no matter what. And I think that goes a long way on Wattpad as well. It's like being consistent as you can. It's hard. Writing is not easy. And there's not a worse feeling than feeling like you're on an endless treadmill. But it's great if you can continue to regularly engage with your audience, if you're just engaging with them. I think that's something that we see as really important.
Yeah, and like the reason that I didn't just delete it and like call it quits there, again, at that time, I didn't have any deals. So nothing was really forcing me to keep writing. I could have just stopped there and like went to school and like lived my life. But the reason that I did keep going and did push through that was because of the readers. Everyone spent the last like 3 years with me reading Amelia and Aiden's story, and I couldn't just do that to them to just be like, well, I'm done now, like, bye. So I pushed through it and I kept going because I wanted to give them the story that they deserved, which is why I didn't just keep writing those like terrible 10 chapters and gave them new chapters, because I knew they deserve better. Amelia and Aiden deserve better, and I deserve better as a writer. So I just wanted to make sure that I told their story as authentically as possible, and I put out something that I was proud of and that readers would be proud of reading and recommending to their friends. And I really wanted to make sure that everyone enjoyed the story. So that's why I ended up doing that. And they are really the reason that I kept doing it. Because if no one was reading the story, I would have just stopped and like went to school. Because again, I was writing while I was a full-time student. So they're the reason that I didn't just like stop. I kept going for them.
I think that leads on. I've got two questions that branch off from this. The first one, how did you balance being a full-time student and writing? Because when I was at university, I didn't have the energy for anything. So I know that a bunch of the emerging writers that we have here with Honor 10X are in university. I bet a bunch of people watching this are in university too. How did you balance?
Yeah, it was hard. I remember sometimes I would like bring my laptop to class because I take hand notes. I don't like typing. So when I would bring my laptop to class, I would kind of be listening with one ear, but like I was so inspired that I just had to continue writing. So as I was in, which is not good advice, but as I was in class, I would be writing because I do really enjoy writing when inspiration strikes. So sometimes I would try to focus on my schoolwork, but I would be like nagging in the back of my head, like what I wanted to happen. So I would kind of just take a break to write and then go back to schoolwork. But I always tried to at least get like the majority of my essays or my tests done with before I would write. And sometimes that meant staying up at 4 a.m., like writing in my bedroom. And sometimes it meant panicking the night before a test and trying to like study and just cram your head with information. It was really just about trying to balance your writing with your schoolwork, which is really hard. I tried to do it as best as I could. Obviously, sometimes it got away from me, but just trying to balance and making sure you're prioritizing your deadlines with your schoolwork, with your update schedule. So that's what I would say. It's really hard.
It's definitely not easy. And my second question is, how has things changed for you? Because now you are a professional writer. You're being paid, you have a book deal, you've got deadlines, you've got editing that you have to do. How has things changed? Do you feel different? Does it feel different? What does it feel like now that you are traditionally published and a professional author?
Yeah, I mean, it's different in the sense where I feel like there's more pressure on me, because before I was just writing like for fun. I wasn't really writing for anyone else, but for myself and for the readers who enjoyed my story. But now that I kind of have deadlines on it, and when I have other editors and when I have all this pressure to like finish this amazing book to get it out in the world, it's definitely a lot more stress on myself because I just want it to be perfect. But I think I still am writing the story that I want to write in the end. So it's still fun for me, but now it's more like I have to do it. I really cannot sit down and say I'm not feeling inspired right now. I'm gonna leave it for a couple months and come back like I usually would. Now it's like, okay, I have a deadline. I really need to get this done. And the fun thing about that though is that I have editors who I can always ask questions. So if I'm really stuck on a certain part, I can always shoot an email off and be like, what do you think about this? So that I can get a second opinion. If I am really stuck, usually I just try to push through it, but it's fun having those editors there. But definitely the main difference is that whereas before I was writing for fun and just to do it, now I actually have to do it.
And that kind of leads on to another question. So now you're working with editors on your story. Previously, you'd have had hundreds of thousands of people commenting on your story. Did any of the things they say impact it? And did having that relationship with someone as you're writing live, did that make the editing process easier? So two kind of questions.
Yeah, so while I was writing on Wattpad, obviously people are commenting as I was going. And as I said before, they were the reason that I did keep updating. But on top of that, sometimes people would like point out stuff that I had missed, just like an editor would. So for example, I think it was Monday, like 4 times in a row in my chapter. And my readers were like, Jessica, it's been Monday like 4 times now. It can't just keep being the same day over and over. So that kind of helped me realize it. Sometimes it's simple things like I would spell like principle wrong, like the wrong type of principle, and my readers would point that out, and that helps me learn and grow. Another thing that someone pointed out was that if you'd say anyways, it's anyway without the S, and I had no idea that that was a thing. So that's what I really learned. So obviously I'm always learning from the readers, and I really enjoy having their input in the story. Has it affected the trajectory of the story and what I wanted to write? I don't think so. I think that I was always sticking to what I wanted to write, but with stuff like that, where an editor is really coming in handy, they definitely came in handy for me as well. And having the editor there, like a professional editor with me, really helped me a lot because they had given me the insight of traditional publishing because I didn't have any traditional publishing insight. I'm just writing. So they kind of helped me understand that you really need certain things to happen. So for example, in my first book, I think Amelia's mom makes like 1 appearance, which she's like, if you're gonna mention her once, like you have to keep, like she has to have at least a little thread going on. So she pops up a little bit more. And I think that gave the story a lot more credibility, and it made it read more smoothly because you're not having random characters like popping in and then just never being mentioned again ever in the book, which makes no sense when you think about it. But as I was writing, I was just writing it. So having her input as like a traditionally publisher, it really helped me try to clean up my story and make it better.
That's awesome. I think I've got like a little bit more of a broader question. In this program, we've been asking people, what have they learned during lockdown and what are they looking forward to next? What are they looking forward to for 2021? What are their goals? What are they hoping to achieve next in their future, in their professional life, in their Wattpad writing life, in their career? How's the future looking for you in terms of your writing? What are some of the goals that you set yourself, and what are you excited about? And are there any lessons that you've learned during this lockdown, during the pandemic, or things that you're grateful for, or any ways that this time has changed you?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So I definitely do have a lot of goals. My first and foremost goal is to finish editing my 3rd book called Still With Me, which is the 3rd book in the series. So right now I'm going through that editing process with the editor, making sure that all the plot holes are filled in, because believe me, the 3rd book had a lot more plot holes than any of the other books. And it's really stressful for me because this is like the big like ending and you want to make sure that it makes sense. And the version that I have on Wattpad is just riddled with plot holes. So I'm going through that now. And I'm trying to get that done because it is being published in 2021. So that's my first goal that I'm trying to get. And then I also have other stories in the back of my mind that I really want to get out there. One story is on Wattpad. It's called Best Vacation Ever. And I think that's about 75% done. And through COVID, I was just reading through that story again. And I realized that there was stuff that I didn't like. So now I'm thinking maybe I should just rewrite the whole thing and like start that again. Like it's just all this time sitting here is making me realize that like I should rewrite it again. There's nothing stopping me from like doing it. So I really want to rewrite that story. And then I have another story that I have about 50,000 words of. I haven't posted it anywhere yet, but I decided to rewrite that whole thing as well. So I just have so many stories that I want to share with everyone that I just want to rewrite first and like make sure that it's better as a whole before I post it. So that's really what I'm working on right now. And I'm definitely really grateful for my family for supporting me through the entire thing, because I know I just sit in my office and like type away, and like my mom will like bring me food, and like everyone's really, really cool. Yeah, she's really great. I love my mom. Yeah.
That sounds like an ideal situation.
Yeah, like I really just sit here. I have my dog, he sits on my lap the whole time, so he keeps me company. And then I have my friends on the internet that I connect with and will write with every once in a while. We'll like sprint, so it's just 30 minutes of straight writing, and then you can talk again as well after. So I'm really grateful for them, because if I didn't have those people, I would just never write. But at least if you have other people counting on you, like, hey, we're gonna write for 30 minutes, like try to get as much done as you can, then I get to sit down and be like, okay, everyone else is doing it, I should do it too. So that's how I've been getting a lot of stuff done.
Fantastic. And and I think the 30-minute writing sprint, huge. Definitely a great, another writer's block buster, you can say, and definitely a great tool to use. So we're coming to the very end now, and really, I think one of the questions, this has obviously been brought to us by Honor with the 10X phone. Why did you want to be involved in this one? What is it about working and helping inspire emerging writers that called out to you, and what does it mean to you to be involved in something like this?
It means everything to be able to be involved with this. I just love helping people so much. I love reading, I love writing, and I love promoting the love of reading and writing to other people. And if I can say anything that can help someone else who was in my shoes when I was back then, when I was an emerging young writer, then I would love to be able to help share my knowledge and help people get there as much as they can. Because when I was young, I would look up to established writers and see what they were doing and listen to their tips. And now that I'm in this position, I would love to give back and share my knowledge that I've gained with emerging writers so that they can get to their best potential and share their stories with the world.
I think that's wonderful. I hope that everyone watching this has enjoyed this. Jessica is available on Wattpad. Her details are below. By all means, reach out, start reading her stories. Maybe purchase them, get into the series, and a huge thank you to Honor for allowing us to run this and to help inspire the next generation of writers from all around the world. And remember, it's Christmas, it's fast approaching, and Honor's kicked off a special Christmas promotion just for you, people listening to this. Please make sure to check out www.hihonor.com for all the details. That link is just below here. Jessica, any final parting words?
I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me. I know I ramble sometimes, but thank you so much for being a part of this with us. And thank you, Tim, for hosting.
All right, that's it, everyone. And we look forward to reading your new stories written on your new Honor 10X Lite phone. Thank you all so much, and have a fantastic day.